Imagine sitting at Banana Jam and not having a beer. It's never happened to me before. And today I'm sitting upstairs in the brewery. Banana Jam must be the only pub with a brewery upstairs in the middle of a suburb.
Yep.
Isn't it just amazing?
Yeah, it is.
Very
nice brew pub. And Greg and Sean have done very well. It's kind of like a brewer's home from home, I think. So they've created a very nice epicenter to the community, and they've got the history as well. I suppose Greg's been going for many years.
So before I introduce Trevor, let me tell you who my guest is. Yesterday I met with His Royal Highness Prince of Bavaria, who's been brewing for 750 years. And today I'm talking to Trevor, whose brewery is 1 year old.
Yeah, there's a bit of a difference. I mean, the Prince hasn't been brewing himself for 700 years.
No, but his family has been brewing. Trevor, welcome to the show. Trevor,
thanks very much, Holger.
Trevor is the owner and hobby brewer at Old Potter's Inn.
That's correct.
Greyton.
Yeah, correct. So that we were more or less a year old today or yesterday. I suppose it depends. I don't know when you say you started going out with your girlfriend or your wife. I don't know what event you used to mark the beginning of such a relationship. But I think for every brewer, the kind of moment of consummation is probably when that license arrives on your desk. So that was our big bang moment, so to speak.
So a year ago.
And that was a year ago, yeah.
And we must have met about
a year before that, Holger.
No, but I mean, a year ago.
2 years before that.
A year ago, we met in Cape Town. It was around this time of the year, and it was also a Thirsty Thursday, or what do you call it? First
Thursday, yes.
And we had a few thirsties,
yeah.
Yeah. That must have been about a year ago.
Yeah, so it all takes a long time.
With Johannes from the Duchess. Because he just launched then as well.
Yeah. And they've done exceptionally well.
They have done very well. Trevor, your story. I mean, you're not a brewer.
No,
you are a brewer now.
I'm a sort of a brewer. I mean, I started off my home brewing career with under the tutelage of Brendan Watcham from Copper Lakes. I kind of stalked him on social media and at beer festivals, and eventually persuaded him to build me one of those gravity systems built out of unused beer or abandoned beer kegs, which he kindly built for me, and showed me how to brew, and did a bit of reading. One of the first people I got equipment from was that National Food Products in Greenside in Johannesburg.
And I mean, interesting, they've been going for something like 30 years or 20 years, isn't it?
Long time. They claimed, I mean, they were about the only game in town that I could find.
In the country, I guess.
Yeah, and in 2010, 2011, they were the only guys supplying that I knew of. I mean, I think Vince LaRue started more or less around about 2009, 2010, and Leon was always around in Johannesburg. But the only people I found on the internet were the National Food Products, and we ran quite a nice shop in Greenside, and now it's been taken over, of course, and run very, very successfully.
Yeah. And just to draw the network, so Brendan claims that he used to install security stuff.
He used to weld gates and
but at Bavaria Brow, you know that?
In Hillbrow?
No, at Bavaria Brow at the brewery.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so that's my link with
Brendan. It's
because I accused him of stealing Bavaria Brow kegs, which obviously he bought at an auction. Because I personally loaded all those kegs many times.
Yeah.
And they felt quite familiar when I saw them at his brewery.
No, there are many interlinking connections in the community, I think.
It is, and the other two are obviously Andre from Woodstock. There's a was he at school with you?
Yes, Andre. So I'm in there about 3 or 4 brewers from my school.
Okay.
Since the
not your brewing school.
No. From Saints, there's Trevor Marshkolk in KZN in Old Thousand Quills. It's called 1,000. Well, it used to be called Quills. Now it's 1,000 Hills. And then there's Andre. And so those are the 3 And then there's also Mainstream is old Sinsterden's boy in Lanseria next to Brendan. So it's quite a few of us around. Yeah.
Must have been a really boring maths teacher or something.
It was a Methodist school, I had to find something to get out of that. But yeah, so Brendan showed me how to do a bit of home brewing, and
But what triggered this interest?
Mandy, my wife, just said to me that I have to find some other interest as I get older, because I seem to have a very short attention span, and she said as I get more and more towards retirement and maybe tired of medicine, which is my day job, that maybe as we retired we could run a brew pub somewhere in some countryside little village, and so the kind of search began about 4 or 5 years ago. We were going to places like Tilbach, and eventually happened to find a little village called Greyton in the Western Cape, just 90 minutes outside Cape Town, a very strange little village that seems to have been captured in time from about 100 years ago. And we found a 1850 memorial house, and Mandy, who's my wife, very cleverly saw the potential for converting this tiny little spot into a brewery, and many people came and said this can never happen, and Mandy sat and designed it, and we managed to get a little 400 litre brew house into the place, and obviously that took a bit of time to get all the planning and the aesthetics committee, and to get all the people from heritage involved, and the Greyton's Auxiliary Crochet Society had to come and give us the okay. So it was quite a process, to say the least, but eventually that got passed, and then it was waiting for the license, which also is a long and boring story in of itself, but it took about a good 3-4 years, including a ship coming from China. And at that stage, the exchange rate seemed to be it seemed to favor getting the equipment from China, and I think a few people have done that. I think Andre from Woodstock also got a Chinese brewery in, and it was just a lot cheaper than getting local guys to do it. And then eventually we started being able to brew and sell in November, which was when we started.
So from the day you decided on Greyton until last year, how long was it? From when we decided and bought the place, which was at about 2012 to about 2016. So it was a good 3 or 4 years before we eventually got the thing up and running. And then you uprooted your wife and you moved down to Cape Town.
Well, my stepchildren had grown up, and we had a place in Sea Point, so we decided to relocate here, and I set up another practice in Rondebosch, and so I do, as I say to anyone who will listen, I do Niertjies during the week and Biertjies on the weekend. So that's Niertjies and Biertjies is my life at the moment, and hopefully the Biertjies start becoming more prominent. Unfortunately, my examination couch in Rondebosch is full of a couch, a blood pressure machine, and about 10 kegs and boxes of beer, which is a little bit worrying, I'm sure, for some of my patients.
Yeah, you might have to apply for a distribution liquor license for that.
In my examination room, maybe.
If anybody from the liquor authorities is listening, they might arrest you.
But the one thing that we were fortunate with is that we weren't paying a rental. We had an operating hotel and B&B there.
So you converted that fairly quickly, or was it already operating?
It wasn't. That was already operating, the B&B and the restaurant part. But I feel so sorry for these people who have a dream of getting a brewery. They find a location, and then they have to sit and wait for a year and a half for the license to come through. So that can be quite an expensive exercise before you start being able to turn out your first beer. Yeah,
and a lot of them start brewing and obviously have to toss the beer.
Yeah, theoretically. I don't know, some down the drain, some down some people's throats. I mean, we were able to brew for a couple of months where we didn't have our license yet, so we were theoretically giving the beer away, which I think is slightly kind of skating on thin ice. It could be seen to be trading, but we weren't getting money for the beer.
And I heard of somebody in Aussie who didn't have a license, and he brewed, and he charged the people for the price of the ingredients, and he gave them another invoice for his time.
I mean, that seems a little bit sneaky. Yeah. I don't think the excise guys would be thrilled to hear of that arrangement.
Yeah, well,
but I think that waiting for the license is what causes a lot of upset for the community, and it just seems nonsensical in a climate where we're trying to grow small businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the common complaints I'm sure you get from all your brewer friends, Holger, that it just takes so long. Yeah, and it's unnecessary red tape a lot of the time.
I mean, they could for like charge a lot more taxes and just do it quickly. If you want to get your license quickly, jump to the queue, and you pay an extra.
Absolutely, and also start drawing excise from. I mean, every business that's up and running is contributing to the burst. So it's amazing that it takes so long. I mean, part of the red tape was we had to send our recipes to the Department of Agriculture, Forests and Fisheries. I'm not sure what the hell they do with that recipe, but it just doesn't seem to make sense.
The procedure.
Yeah.
Okay, and your team that runs the B&B?
So I've got, because I work in Cape Town and Greyton's about 90 minutes away, I've had to hire brewers to be proxies for me, and I've been lucky. I've had some very good guys that have come through. Unfortunately, we're a small business, so I'm on in a years of operating, I'm already on my 4th brewer.
Wow.
But I'm pleased to say each of the brewers who've left have gone on to bigger projects, and we're very proud that we've been a stepping stone for them to go into places like Lily Patrick and Franschhoek Brewing Company, which is partly owned by Ruben Ruffel. They're making some very nice beer with the help of the OPA and also their porter, delicious. So we've made friends out of these new breweries that have stolen my brewers, and then so it's been a learning experience, and there are a group of people out there looking for brewing jobs, and I've found very, very good guys, and I've got an assistant there. I've recently had to hire some marketing guys, and my latest marketing guy was gapst by Jack Black. So that's the way it goes. I think it's a mobile community of people that are looking for better and bigger breweries all the time.
Okay, and in your day job, do you have a big team there?
There's in the medicine or the Biertjies or the Niertjies. In the Niertjies, it's just myself and a secretary. I mean, the Niertjies is easy. You have a pen and a stethoscope, and that's it. You're ready to go. It's not like brewing where you've got to put a down payment of millions before you're up and running. I mean, to start anything small, you kind of need at least a couple of million and at least a couple of years to get your license. So medicine's easier, much easier.
But moving your practice to Cape Town must also, that must have been disruptive.
Yeah, it was, but it's been worthwhile.
How do you get new customers, referrals from?
I mean, the good thing about beer is that it's actually good for kidneys. It doesn't affect your kidneys adversely at all. It's actually.
But where do
I've had to go and meet GPs and make friends with GPs.
Did you use your beer influence?
No, it's very difficult to use the beer influence. Although beers do prevent kidney stones, so beers are good for kidneys, not good for livers and...
you could have used all that beer in the first year to market your practice.
Exactly, but it's... that's also starting to, 2 years down the line, starting to get up and running. So it's as I say, I spend my weeks in the practice in Cape Town, and then on the weekends try and get out into the country and help design recipes and improve on our current recipes. The thing that everyone talks about is consistency. I found that's been quite a challenge as your natural supply, as your grains and your hops kind of dry up from time to time. You've got to make substitutes, and it's very difficult for small operators like ourselves to keep that consistency. So, and it's been an evolving process as we've got to where we are, and we've still got a long way to go, hopefully. But we're just grateful to have survived the first the kind of 12 months, and hopefully can continue to improve.
How much beer do you think you can eventually sell in Greyton?
I think we're lucky.
Only on site, I mean.
Yeah, I mean that. What everyone says is that the way to stay afloat is to have a brew pub, and to be able to cut out the middlemen and sell your product directly from the tank to the tap. And
you can take an example of the Prince, where his family owns a beer garden in Munich that can seat 8,000 people.
Yeah, I mean that's the entire population of Greyton times 2. It's got about a 4,000 resident population that swells to about 5,000 on the weekends.
Yeah.
So we are small. We can seat about 100 people during a rugby game, and hopefully make it a wash with beer. But we can. So we're selling now on average around about 3,000 litres, but I want to start improving on that and start increasing sales in Hermanus and in Cape Town itself, and that involves a lot of long hours, and I mean everyone knows the tap wars and how bloody they can be.
Tap wars, yeah.
Yes.
That's an interesting word. I mean, we talk of the beer wars of the 1970s. And for anyone
in this country,
for anyone interested, look out for the interview with Manfred Huff. Manfred was working for the Ruperts. They started a brewery, and he was involved in the beer wars. I think he eventually had about 20% or 30% of the South African beer market.
My goodness,
And then the Ruperts and SAB did a share swap, and they got Stellenbosch Farmers Winery, and they closed the brewery.
Right.
Kronenbräu 1308.
Good. Okay, I remember that very well.
The brand
with the horse-drawn beer cart and everything.
And that was the beer wars, and now we got the tap wars.
Yeah,
interesting.
But
it's true.
It's very difficult. Yeah. It's very difficult to go into a pub that's already gotten a relationship with, and then a lot of the so-called craft breweries have now become quite big boys. The big three in Cape Town. It's quite difficult to elbow them out of the tap. Out of the tap lineup when they've got access to coolers and chillers and taps and umbrellas and God knows what else. So it's a tricky war, and I think the one podcast that I really enjoyed of yours was with Alan Melville from Red Rock, and he always pays credit to Hermanus Brewing Company, and the way that they have kind of not tried to go national or even into Cape Town. They've flooded the Hermanus market. They produce a brilliant award-winning lager, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to just stay Hermanus and Cape Town and kind of flood that little section of the N2.
How far is Greyton from Hermanus?
It's about half an hour down the most beautiful drive, the Hummel and Arde Valley, past some of the most beautiful wine farms, Creation and Bouchard Finlayson, where we're trying to get some of our barrels to start playing with barrel-aged beer. So I think we're lucky that I work in Cape Town, and I can try and infiltrate that market to some extent, and my staff in Greyton can get into Hermanus, and we slowly getting in there into some of those harbour restaurants, and I think the whole thing is about relationship building, and I mean you'd know that better than anyone, Holger. I mean if there's ever a beer question on our WhatsApp chat group, I always say, what the hell does HM say? I mean, Holger Meyer always knows. So it's about building up these relationships and having the confidence that your customers will maybe defend you in the tap wars.
And I mean, I respect that, and I think that's a big plus where you have immediately caught onto it. And I must say, somebody else who's been brilliant with that is Glenn from Six Dogs.
Yes,
from the distillery.
So Glenn's an old St. Stevens boy.
Oh, is he?
We've got nice alcohol guys in St. Stevens, and Glenn is also from Greyton.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a house in Greyton, so I know Glenn very well. They've done extremely well.
But what I want to say is, if I give Glenn a tip, he's onto it like a dog, or like Six Dogs. I mean, he doesn't. He takes a dip and he makes something. He makes a sale.
Yeah.
And you've done the same. I mean, we mentioned Tony to you, and you were in there within. And tell us that.
So, well, Tony. I mean, everyone in Cape Town knows Tony da Costa. I mean, he's a legend in the craft beer scene, together with Marnie and so you
tell us about the one incident, your first tasting there.
At oh my God, I was standing there in the liquor store on a Saturday afternoon without the stethoscope, but trying to look like a beer seller and at the same time. In the first 5 minutes, in walked a colleague and said, "What the hell are you doing here?" And then 5 minutes later, a patient walked in and said, "Also, what the hell are you doing here?" So I said, "So it's a little bit. There is a little bit of embarrassment from time to time, but
beer is very forgiving, I guess, or beer people."
Yes, but I must say, what's always been fascinating to me is how generous the beer community are. They I don't know if they just consume too much of their product, but they're all such nice people, as you will attest. It's such generosity of spirit, the way they share secrets and brewing tips and recipes, and I've never come across a brewer who's kind of been nasty or ungenerous, if there's such a word. So and you yourself would fit into that category. So it's been a very nice community. It almost feels, I mean, to use the cliche, like a family. Yeah. I mean, if you don't get to that WhatsApp group of ours, next thing you look, there are 150 missed messages. So it's very active. Yeah.
Two things. You said you stalked Brendan, you stalked me, and on your birthday.
Yes, that is our first beer together on my birthday. And I think I bought it for you.
And more importantly, you bought another copy of my book, so
yes,
which made it worth my while. I checked into just to tell the listeners. I checked into Liquor City in, what is it called?
They're in Broadacres. Yeah, in Four Ways.
And then I get a message from Trevor saying, "Hey, let's meet."
You must be careful what you put on Facebook. You can't slip into you can't slip into my neighborhood without me knowing. But and then and I've been encouraging you to update that book ever since then.
Yeah, of course. You want to be in it.
Exactly.
And.
But that's been a tremendous journey. That must have been a tremendous journey for you, and seeing how the numbers have increased over the last 5 years of breweries in the country.
It's got a bit overwhelming because you see the brands in the bottle stores, or at least that's where I see them, or on social media, and you don't really know if it's a brewery or if it's just a brand.
Yes.
And I think at this stage, there's so many brands that you're really just trying to understand who makes what and where, what is authentic and what is...
Well, I think most of those brands on the shelf are authentic, and they come from a geographic location with a team, a kind of husband and wife team, or a group of mates, or two oaks, to use a brand name, and they are authentic. There are a few contract beers out there, but they seem to me to be done with great sincerity and authenticity as well. So the only thing with this burgeoning craft beer scene is I suppose the quality control. And I was speaking with one of the Cape Town guys, quite well known in the beer circles here, Troy May, yesterday, about how that transpires into quality control. And as these things get bigger and bigger, and P-Ware has always been a big proponent of quality control, I think it probably is important. It just needs to be handled very carefully. You have to be careful who you set up as the arbitrators of quality. It's no good having a brewer being the kind of grand Jedi master of quality, and he's kind of kicking his competitors in the teeth simply to make it expedient. So it is important. And I mean, for example, the thing that always amazes me with the craft beer that's made here, there are many craft beers that haven't got a date of expiry or a date, which is bizarre. I mean, it's a living product that's decaying from the shelf. So there is a long way to go in the local market. But I'm sure this is replicated all over the world. I'm sure the States has the same problem.
Yeah.
I see they're getting a label now that they put on there saying independent.
We're in the States.
In the States, yeah. So I mean, I'm not sure. I suppose breweries like Sam Adams are now no longer considered craft breweries in inverted commas.
In the States they are, and they're much bigger than somebody like Windhoek.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think our local craft beer, I agree with Apiwe. It could start self-regulating perhaps and protect the consumer, because we've all had that rotten, unintended sour beer that needs to possibly be improved upon. So that's the issues here, I think.
Yeah. You speak about marketing, I mean, or social media earlier. I mean, imagine having to launch a brewery without social media.
Yeah, I don't know. The social media thing is a two-edged sword. I mean, I try and play in the social media space. It used to be easy about 3 years ago. You just had to be on Facebook. But now you've got to be on Facebook. And then came Twitter, and now you've got Instagram. So there's these little echo chambers of people who like beer tweeting to other people who like their beer, and then retweeting the tweet that was retweeted by the retweeter. So I don't know how successful that is in spreading the word. I don't know what you feel.
No, I don't think. I mean, I think for me, Facebook, I think still works nicely because although if you're using a page, it's obviously harder. You know, Facebook makes it disappear. They want your money.
Yes.
But if you like, and I always laugh about Tony da Costa at Liquor City Claremont. I met his nephew once in Pretoria, who owns a bottle store there at Tops, and he said, "Has my uncle gone mad?" I said, "Why?" I said, he said, "I think he's got into his midlife crisis." I said, what are you talking about? He says, "He's on Facebook." I said, "Do you know how successful Tony is on Facebook?"
Yeah.
And he's been really successful.
He has.
And so have we at Hillcrest Tops, because the whole community is built around Facebook. I mean, I think there's a place for Twitter, and there's a place for all the other things, but I think you must just choose one and do where you're comfortable with, where your friends are and your community, and build your community.
So someone said to me, Facebook has been stolen by the old farts, by our parents, and that all the cool kids are now on Instagram. And I mean, we're sitting here at Banana Jam Cafe, and a guy who showed that to me, who's somewhere between the cool kid and old fart spectrum, is old Greg Casey. He's very active on Instagram, and I think all the young kind of 20-somethings are out there Instagramming pictures of themselves with their favorite beers, and so I think you're reaching the people who you know. It becomes a little bit of an echo chamber, as I've said. But we try and be active, and it's probably educating the public. You know, people are now. I mean, since I've got into this game in the last 5 years, there's certainly beers that I've never heard of that are becoming more and more commonplace. You know, for example, Imperial Russian stouts that have been barrel aged. You would never have heard of that 5 years ago, and those are becoming kind of. If you don't have a barrel in your brewery, you look like a bit of a useless bugger. You know, you got to barrel up. Barrel up, buddy. You got to get, you know. So it is getting more and more interesting. Marnie from Rouland Street, who's been a crusader of the craft scene for many years, I suppose 10 years or so. He said, you know, craft beer scene is possibly becoming a little bit stale and dull now, and gin is where it's at. And I can see what he's saying. You know, you spoke about Glenn Bryant and his delicious blue Six Dogs gin. But I think it's becoming more and more interesting and refined, and there are many people out there who are doing very interesting things. So I think there's a long way to go still, and many interesting areas to delve into.
And it depends on the market. I mean, if you running a specialty store like Roland Liquors or Hillcrest Tops, you certainly have to find the newest and the most innovative bottled beer and have that for your customers, like the Devil's Peak with their limited ranges. But if you're running your own brew pub in Greyton, people are happy just to chill out with a good lager or something.
Yes.
And the more specialty beers, people will want those occasionally, and especially if you're at a place like Banana Jam, again, people will go for the extreme beers.
Yeah.
But I think Castle Light is probably still one of his big sellers.
I'm sure.
People still want session beers. And interesting, I was at a talk in Munich the other day, and they said in the States and in Germany, so the German market is different to the United States, but it's definitely turning towards session ability in the States.
Yeah.
Where people have said, it's been as hoppy as it can be, it's been as strong as it can be. Let's drink session.
And then summer's about beer, and there's nothing better than a nice kind of light, fluffy, almost tasteless lager. But to make that product is surprisingly difficult. I mean, these ales with all their big flavors are a lot easier, I think. Obviously there's room but you can hide a lot of mistakes in an ale compared to a lager. So it's very easy to be critical of lagers, but those are the difficult beers to make. And I'm sure you're right. It's going to turn towards sessionability and drinkability, especially in our climate now.
And in Germany as well. So there it's definitely lighter beers.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Castle Light is doing well here, but the Germans just want to drink the whole day.
Yes.
And they like drinking beer, but they want to drink for a long time, and they don't like
the 3-4% range and the light and sessionable, as you say.
So today I saw Erdinger bringing in a Sommerweisse, which is a lighter, hoppier wheat beer, and which is just for the summer, I guess. And that would do well in Germany. I don't know how well it would do here, because people here, if I want to buy Erdinger, I probably want the original.
Yes, the Weiss,
but if not a lighter version of that.
Yeah. But that's an interesting new development. Yeah. I mean, it'll go through phases, I'm sure. And with how many craft breweries do you reckon there are now? Must be 200, 250 in the country, and I'm sure there's going to be collapses and new ones and amalgamations and buyouts and absorptions.
Definitely buyouts. I mean, I think Heineken woke up with a groot skrik and they realized, who's for sale? And they quickly bought Stellenbrouw and Soweto with real money. Yeah. I mean, that's proper money that they paid for those businesses or those brands.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure they're going to acquire a few more, and then I don't know if SAB will retaliate, but
I mean, I like the way the SAB, AB, InBev have gone now with they've fostered their own craft initiatives with the Franson Street and the Newlands, and I think some of those beers are very good. So I like the way that they've built them themselves in-house without just kind of looking around in a boardroom and flashing up PowerPoint slides of breweries up for sale. Although who would not want to sell their brewery to the big boys?
Yeah.
But it's also amazing how big some of these craft breweries have become in the last 2-3 years. You know, how massive the Devil's Peaks and the CBCs and Allen's magnificent brewery up in Joburg. They really are getting quite big there. But I suppose their percentage of the pie remains minuscule, 1-3%, I would imagine at most.
Yeah, and I don't think they find it easy.
No.
To penetrate the market. I think Red Rock has got the sales force from DGB is 100 reps, but they're wine people.
That's a big army of people to.
The problem, I think, is that they're 100 wine salesmen, and selling wine is something
different
that I struggle with.
Yeah.
I can sell Four Cousins Pink Rosé
Yeah.
to the Zulus, which I did very successfully, but I can't sell anything else.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a different
market
mentality. You need to understand how the market works.
Yeah.
And somebody like Tony understands. Tony DaCosta has got a magnificent wine section, and if he shows it to me, I go blank. I switch off.
Too much.
It's like being you're selling nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
But if he takes me to the gin section or the beer section,
you can find your way and understand
exactly
it. Yeah. So, I mean, he's very. What Tony says there. He said he took me down the shelves one day. He kindly led us into his shop like you did, and he took me down the rows of craft beer there. I mean, it must be difficult. We were talking about this the other day. It must be so difficult having all these hundreds of craft beers in your bottle store that must pass their expiry date and start going a little bit fraught.
Yeah.
I mean, there must be a little bit of dumping along the way. But Tony was just saying, look at all these bottles. They all kind of look different, but they all look the same. You've got to have some way of standing out here. And it's a challenge. It's quite difficult. I don't know what you need to do with your beer to make it stand out on the shelf so that Joe Soap comes and picks your bottle above the Devil's Peak and the CBC, which is an established quality brand, that's earned their stripes over many years.
I think it's the experience. I mean, look at somebody like Niertjies. If you have a good experience in
21 years
on the location.
21 years this year.
But how many people from Joburg or from Durban have got, they love going to the Midlands and they love stopping there for a pint, whether they are at Beer Fussel. And I think if you can achieve that with Greyton, this is the beer that I had in Greyton. And people tell me about the Old Harbour lager from Hermanus.
Yeah.
And they said to me, if I could only get this beer in Durban. And I say,
oh, really?
It's here. Nobody bought it.
Yeah.
And they nobody expects to find it there. And it's the same with Mitchell's. I mean, how many years people wanted to drink that beer in Knysna.
Yep.
And not in Joburg.
Yep. And they've been through their ups and downs as well, haven't they? Yeah, I suppose it is. I mean, and that's what we are trying to capture, some kind of country experience. We're sitting in the heart of the barley district. We controversially have stuck with SAB barley in spite of what a lot of people saying. It's the over imported barleys, the malts are so much superior. We quite like the barley from our local area, and we like the hops from George, and we've tried to stay as South African as possible and keep it as local as possible. But we are trying to create that what's it, provenance or terroir, that beer terroir of local barley in the country and this fresh country beer kind of thing. But the marketing, we're not a marketing team. It's me and Mandy, my wife, and my team, Leon, who's on site to tender. We found a magnificent Zimbabwean brewer who came down, and he said to me, I've got all 3 of my IBD exams, similar to not too many people in this country. There are not many fully qualified brewers who've done that IBD exam. So we took him on, and he's doing extremely nicely for us. But we are a small team, and it's difficult to make a little niche. And thank God for the Marnies and the Tonys and a few other craft bottle stores that are springing up. And you, Hillcrest, have always been magnificent. You've been very kind to many people and filled your shelves with whatever we put in that pallet and send down the into towards Hillcrest. I mean, I've still got to come and visit your shop, but it's rated highly as the best by many people. So a big thank you to people like yourselves.
So this weekend are you gonna get in your car and drive to?
So this weekend I'm getting in my car, and as I said to the crew, I'll drive 500 miles and then another 500 miles to get to Elbe and to Midlands there, and go to the Africa Brew, which is a kind of camp where brewers brew, and there's quite a nice program there. The organizer is going to do a beer roast with me, so she's going to take my IPA and pull it apart and tell me how I can make it better. And I look forward to that.
Who's at Albi?
Yes, okay. Yes. So she's going to put the stilettos on my I don't know, on my body and try and tell me how to make a better beer. And I think those are good experiences to be critiqued and to try and improve. And especially there'll be some BJ, CP people in attendance, and I look forward to learning that. I'm not BJ, CP trained. I kind of like what I like, but I think there's lots to be learned from gatherings like this.
Yeah, tell us about that community, because it's the Word Hogs, or is it something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are these clubs. There's the Word Hogs, obviously in Johannesburg, and the Southeasters down here in Cape Town. I think the Word Hogs started first. Thanks, and a lot of it was done at people like Gilroy's. You know, there's so many pioneers in this business that have set the ship afloat. But I think there's just a great camaraderie amongst all brewers. If you say to a brewer, I'm also a brewer, you can immediately see a little
kinship.
Yeah, there is a kinship. It sounds corny, but there is a kind of medieval kinship, and I see this as we were talking. You know, there is this move to try and get a guild. I mean, I even like that word guild. It talks of an ancient brother or sistership of crafting the beer, and hopefully that starts taking root now. Yeah. But they need to be very careful about what they need to have a very specific aim and not be too broad in their objectives, because I think that will fail. But let's see how it goes. It's admirable that that there are even attempts at that.
Okay, I can see that your beer is empty. And
so you're going to go dry in November, Holger?
I'm going dry in November.
You're a month late. November's impossible. It's the party season.
It's the party season. Maybe I'm wrong.
How do you see the beer, the local industry evolving over the last kind of 5 years?
Well, I think...
Has it improved, or...?
People looking from a retailing point of view, people like Hillcrest and Liquor City Claremont and Roland were gathering, and we were trying to get every single beer that we could onto our shelves and offer it. I think the important thing for those sort of retailers is they want to offer something that nobody else can offer. So if Darling and Devil's Peak are doing big deals through Pick and Pay, there's no real attraction for these guys to punt those brands. So there's always an opportunity for the small brands. I think and I've noticed it in Cape Town now. There's definitely you go to Woodstock Liquors, and the guy says definitely the people want to drink local craft beers. Right. So I think that is, for example, in Germany, and I had this lovely discussion with Florian, who's a Bavarian. He works at the 333 distillery, where he walked into Hillcrest Tops and said, show me the local beers. Yeah. And then you have to scatter and think, what's
we've got everything from Cape Town and Joburg.
And of course we stock the local beers, but that is so typical Germany. The German always supports the local beer. You don't expect 99 bottles on the shelf. You don't expect 20 taps. You just want
what is local.
And I think it's an important thing, and I think the retail trade must embrace that. Yeah. And just
push local,
branded local, and we certainly want to do that in KZN. We're starting to talk to the local brewers and say let's hold hands, let's do a local marketing initiative, and we do that with no harm intended to the other brands, but I think it's important that the retailers support local.
I mean, it's like these top restaurants. I mean, everything is about, they talk about locavores. I mean, everything must come from the area. It must be local. Your vegetables and your beer as well is a vegetable of sorts, I imagine. And
nowhere in Europe or in Germany is somebody proud to drink a Heineken.
Yes. Yeah.
And here we love the brand, the green bottle, and it's nearly like we have a complex. You know, it's better to buy something from
overseas.
Yeah.
The great South African inferiority complex. Yeah,
and even further to go to the market and buy it from the brewer.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I used to go to the Shongweni brewery and buy beer from Robson's and Shongweni at 25 rand a bottle instead of 39 at the bottle store. And it's you speak to the brewer, you interact with the brewer.
Yeah.
And it's the same for a lot of produce. But I think that's probably the future.
Yeah.
But then people want variety and they want to walk into a location and just be overwhelmed
by the variety on display. Yeah. But I mean, hopefully that does become more and more of a thing where people stay local. I think you possibly are right there. Yeah. Yeah,
and I think that's a good trend. And again, for you, I think the tip is sell as much as you can in your pub, and get the local involvement. And I want to credit you because I think it's do collabs like you've done with Greg. When I saw you and Greg on Facebook doing stuff, grab the guys, drive them to your brewery and say, let's do something. Yeah. And I think that's an exciting opportunity.
No, I mean, Greg Casey, what can you say about him? Oh, God, as he walked in. But that has been, we had a fantastic time then when we did that collab. And another big, strong, enthusiastic community are the home brewers. I mean, we've had some fantastic collaborations with them that have been tremendous fun. And they're not scared to pull something out of the bag and do a garlic-flavored lager. I mean, I'm exaggerating,
but they don't have to sell it.
They don't have to sell it, and they got small 20-liter systems. But that enthusiasm is so nice to harvest and to get interesting beers out of. Yeah.
Talk about Greg. So I showed him a rum from KwaZulu-Natal, and he immediately said, I want to go to that distillery and brew beer in their distillery.
Yeah, and with their barrels.
And put my beer in their barrel.
Absolutely.
And I'll sell the rum here and they must sell my beer. And I think that's a creativity that the small guys need to do.
That's what Greg's very good at. Yeah.
And I think that keeps things exciting and also then market it locally again.
Sure.
I think it's been a wonderful time chatting to you. Let's just... People can find you at Old Potters.
Yes, so we're on Old Potters on all the Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, web address, and we're out in Greyton, 90 minutes from Cape Town, up the road from Hermanus. It's a beautiful part of the world, the Overberg. We'd love to sit down and have a beer with you. We've been so privileged to have many brewers walk through our doors. Alan himself often comes to Hermanus. Okay. The Two Oaks have been there. Dani Oudendal, to name but a few, Greg. So we've had a jaw. We've enjoyed it.
Now I'll take a photo of you.
And thanks for the opportunity, Holger. You're aiming to do a podcast today. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor.
It's going to be a long month. Yeah. Enjoy.
Cheers.
Thanks, man.